Alright, Subpart C for the procedure for the government notice applicant for the financial assistance acquisition public use for the trailer use. So the 1150-20 notice for the intent of the payment of the discontinuance of the service. Filling publication requirement, the application shall give the notice of the intent of the file with the payment of the discontinuance application by complying with the following procedure. For the filing of the applicant must serve the notice of the intent of the board by the certified letter in the format described. 1152-20 when the notice shall file with the according with the time requirements of paragraph B with the section serve the application must serve for the first class of the mail with the, unless otherwise specified with the notice of the intent upon with a significant user of the line. The governor of the be certified by each of the state with the directly effective with the abandonment of the discontinuance for the purpose of the section state with the directly effective with those of the any of the part of the south of the abandonment is located. Public Service Commission equivalent of the agency in the state. The designated state agency of the state with the state of the cooperative the extension of the services in these states. U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Railroad Administration, Department of Defense, Military Service Deployment and Distribution Command with the Transportation Engineering Agency, Railroad with the National Defense Program. The U.S. Department of Interior with the Recreation Resource for the Assistance Division, National Park Service for the U.S. Railroad Retirement Board of the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, Amtrak with the Amtrak operates over the involved line. The U.S. Department of Agricultural Chief with the Forest Service, the headquarters of the duly certified labor organization with the representative employee with affected rail line posting. Application must have the copy of the notice with the intent each of the agency determined over the ban to be abandoned if there is no agency on the line with the notice of the intent should be banned and posted with the agency station with which business if they are involved with the receipt of the forward of the newspaper. The publication application must publish with the notice of intent with at least one day once during the 3 consecutive weeks of the newspaper general circulation each of the county of which any of the part involved with the line is located. Time limit. The notice of the intent with must be served for at least 15 days with no more than 30 days prior to the filing with the amendment of the application. The notice must be posted with a fully published with a 30-day period for the prior to filing of the application. 3. The notice of the must be filed with the board and concurrently with the service with the notice of the first published whichever occurred first. Environmental historic reports. Application must submit with the environmental historic report as described in 11057, 11058 at least 20 days prior to the filing application. 1152 21. Form of the notice. Notice of the intent and payment of the discontinuance service shall be in the following. The source for the transportation board number AB subnumber number and notice for the intent of the payment of the discontinuance service. The name of the application to give the notice of the application filed with the board. It's intended to file with the service of the transportation board Washington D.C. 2042-3 with the application of the permission and payment of the discontinuance service line with the railroad known as name of the railroad mile post and the station name and then the end of the line with the rail mile post with the station name of the transverse of the United States postal zip codes and distance of the mile of the counties of the state of the line. Include with the station of all the stations in line with the order of the mile post. Include the mile post location. Reason for the proposed abandonment of the discontinuance are explained briefly, clearly with the proposed action undertaken by the application of the board is based on information with the out of the possession line that it does not contain with the federally granted right away, but any of the documentation of the railroad possession will be made available promptly with the requesting it. The line railroad has appeared with a system diagram map included with the narrative of the category 1 and serve the date with the insert of the railroad employees will be protected by specified the appropriate condition of the application will include the application of the entire case of the amendment and the discontinues this case in chief of the adjourned the person the application is filed insert of the date with the alright. Alright. Alright, one I can't tell if that's a cheap smaller temp or whatever. Let's go move on to 1152.22. Contents of application. Application amendment of the railroad line. The discontinue of the rail service shall contain the following information. Include the work paper, the support documents, chief, the paragraph of the A through J with the section with the intent of the person to have the personal knowledge of the matter contained therein. G. General. A. General. Then each with the name of the applicant with the applicant with the comment of the carrier of the railroad. Subject to Title 49 U.S. Standard Code Subtitle 4 with the Chapter 105 with the release of the amendment of the line with the discontinue with the detailed map of the subject line with the chief with no longer than 10 by 9, 8 by 9 and 10 and a half inches. Drawn scale with the scale with the shown with the map of the must show, but then clearly read the exact location of the rail line abandonment over the surface of the discontinuous relation with the other line with the area of the highway, the railway, waste for water routes, and the population center. Reference for the inclusion with the rail line with the band with the relation for the strip of the discontinued with the carrier system diagram map of the narrative to comply with 1152 10 1152 13. The date of the line with such line with the first listed with the system diagram map with include with the narrative to category 1 in accordance with 1152 10b1 with a copy of the line, the description accompanied with the system diagram map of the officer with the submitted and detailed statement of the region for the filing application, name, title, address, the representative of the applicant for the correspondence should be sent with a list of all the United States postal zip code with the line with the proposed with the amendment of the transverse for the condition of the property with the present physical condition line with include with the operating with the restriction estimated with the deferred maintenance for the rehabilitation cost for the number of the time for the replacing the mile for the rail needing replace the new valve for the bridge is repair with the replacement need with the estimated labor cost the expense for the necessary for the upgrade with the minimum federal railroad administration class 1 with the safety stamp of the base of the estimate will be stated with the particularly with the work paper shop 5 with the application. Service provided. Description: service performed with the line of the base of the year with the defined 1152C with include with the actual number of the trains operated with their frequency. Mile with the tracks of the operated with include with the main line with the rail-owned sidings. The average number of the locomotive units operated with the total tonnage of the carload each of the combined group on this line with the overhead of the head bridge of the traffic carrier carload combined group of the will not be retained with the carrier. The average crew size of the level of the main of the any with the important change with the train with the service to undertake with the calendar year immediately proceed with the following application. 9. The reason for declining with the traffic any of the best judgment application. Revenue and cost data with the computation revenues attributed with the avoidable the cost of the line with the abandonment of the base year for the end determined and defined with the 1152-2C with the to examine the surface of the branch line with the data is available in accordance with the methodologies prescribed in 1152-31 through 33. Is applicable submitted with the call with 1152-36 Exhibit 1. The carrier shall compute with the estimate of the future revenues attributed with avoidable cost with the reasonable return with the value line with the abandonment of the forecasted year as in the defined 1152-2H for the form conformed. Exhibit 1 carrier shall fully support with the document the dollar amount of the forecast year with the include with the explanation of the rational and key assumptions used with the determine the forecast year amount. The carrier should also compute with the estimated subsidiary payment over the base year with the form called for the Exhibit 1 alternative payment and to reflect the increase for the recreate for the attributed revenue for the avoidable call for the projected subsidiary year with the estimated reasonable data with the shall come with the tax reduction for federal statement of the real life of the subsidiary for the years based for the adjustment of the EG for the rate. You can increase change with the in traffic level of the nations necessary with the maintenance to comply with the minimum fair road administration class 1 safety standard that shall be stated with a particular rural community impact with the name of the population with the identified short for the day with the figure of the community and station with the line with the identification significant use of 1152-1 with the name of the address of the principal combined with the tonnage for the core over each of the 2 calendar years. Immediately proceed with the following abandonment of the discontinuance application with the part of the current year with the information available the base year with the addition with the tonnage and the carload with each of the combined group of the original terminating of the line segment as shall also be shown with the same time with the period that is over the significant use of the general description. Alternatives over the transportations over the rail, motor, water, air, with the avoidable with a high network of the proximity of the air, with the statement whether the proposed over the bin over the property of the use of the other public purpose of the include with the roadway, high with these other form of the mass transportation conservation, each of the production, transmission, recreation. If the application is aware of any of the restriction title over the property, including of the revisionary interest with which are affected the transfer of the title use of the property with the other than rail purposes shall be disclosed. Environmental impact. The application shall submit the information regarding the environmental impact proposed with the abandonment of discontinuance complying with 1105.7 and 1105.8. The certain information required with the environmental regulations and duplicalities information required with aware of the application environmental information requirements to be specific reference for the allocation of the information served to the elsewhere passenger. Alright, passenger service. If the passenger service provide the line with the application stay with the appropriate with the steps have and take with the discontinuous purpose with the railway passenger service act of the Title 45 U.S. Code 501 and 10 sequence. Additional information over the applicant shall be submitted with the additional information for the support with the application for the board of the Alright, the duty of the Federal Register and the notice of the application submitted the duty thereafter the notice of the application is published by the board with the addition of the regular number of the copies filed with the board with the applicant most may submit with a copy of the draft notice of the data contained with a computer diskette compatible with the board current word processing capability of the board will publish the notice of the Federal Register within 20 days of the applicant filing with the board with the draft notice shall be deformed and set forth and by and then shows a notice of application abandonment discontinuance and services. And then we are on looking for number 2. I'm skipping that. Going to J. Verification. Original application shall be executed, verified within the form of the set forth for the officer for the carrier of the knowledge and for the fact for the matters relied on. And then you shall get a verification. Alright, 1152.23 reserved. 1152.24 filing service application. Original 10 copies of the application for the typewritten with the printed with the paper with approximately 8.5 by 11 inch with the 1.5 inch left margin shall be filed with the chief protection of the administrator office proceeding the Washington D.C. 204230001. Original shall be with the date of the signature shall complete with itself with the signature and the stamps. Type an order seal with the check of the money order with the payment of the credit card payable to the serve of the transportation board must be able to remove the cover of the application and the filing fee of the application for the carrier of the bankrupt. The application shall be filed with the bankruptcy court of the application shall attend with the application for the affidavit of the testing with the compliance with the notice of the requirements 115220 affidavit shall include with the date of the service of the posting of the publication notice of the when the application is filed with the board with the application shall serve with the first class of the mail a copy of the governing of the public service of the commission with the equal agency with the designated with the agency with the each of the state of the which any with the part of the railroad shall with the beginning with the discontinued situated with a copy with the applicant with the application available for the public inspection with and or after the day of the abandonment. Application is filed with the board after each of the agency station termination of the terminal of the line with the proposed abandonment. The discontinuity if there is no agency station on the line with the application shall be deposted with any agency station throughout the business of the line received or forward. A certificate of service shall be promptly filed with the board, but the application shall promptly further ensure the first copy on mail class copy with the applicant with the interested person promote the file written comment with the protest upon the request on the certificate of service that shall be promptly filed with the board, reject with the abandon with the discontinuance the application with it does not substantially conform with the regulation of subchapter of subpart C with regard to the notice of the form content which apply with the line with which with the not properly with the publisher with the care of the system diagram map or include with the narrative of the case with the class of the care of the conformance with the regulations of part B of this part. Upon filing an abandonment of the discontinuance, the application for the board will review the application and determine whether conform with the applicable regulation. If the application is substantial and complete with the file, otherwise indefective, the board shall reject the application for the stated reason and order with the administrator the filing within 20 days of the filing of the application for the board does not reject for the application. Note of the filing application shall be published with the Federal Register of the board with the director of the office of the proceeding with the 20 days of the filing application. If the application rejected for the revised application must be submitted to the board to determine whether the resubmitted application conform with the prescribed regulation of the properly revised application submitted within 60 days of the order rejecting incomplete, improper application of the not subject with the new notice of the publication 11/50/24 with the defective because of the rejection of the notice of the publication provided the application submitted after 60 days must be newly published in notice. Resubmission of the abandonment of the discontinuance application considered with the de novo filing purpose of the computation of the time period filing after the financial assistance of the in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1094 with the regulations contained in part of the Title 40 and 49 CFR 1152 provided resubmit of the application deemed the complete and the proper. An application of the may seek with a waiver of the specific regulation listed in the subpart C with the file with the petition waiver of the board with the decision directed for the officer with the proceed with the granting with the denying with the waiver of the petition with the issue within 30 days of the day of the petition appeal with the director of the decision with the decide with the entire board with the waiver does not obtain prior to the filing of the application. The application may be the subject of the rejection of the paragraphs E1 and 2, but the section is approved with 115229 E2 with the rail carriers is authorized to ban the line in Title 49 U.S. Code 1093 with the must file with the board notice with the abandonment that has been consummated. Art 1152, participation, abandonment of the discontinuance and proceed. The public participation, protest of the comments of an interested person may become the party for the abandonment of the discontinuance and proceed with the filing with the written comments of the protest of the board with the request of the public use of the condition with the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1095 of the 1152-28 of the board with the rules and request of the trail use of the conditions Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 1247 and D with the 1152-29 with the board rule with the must include each filing with a person who may oppose the abandonment of the discontinuance who does not wish to participate thoroughly in the process of the hearing with the oral hearings or by submitting a verified statement of the witness contained with the detailed evidence should file only the comments of the person interested in only seeking the public use of the trail. Use conditions should also use the file comments of the person opposed to the proposed abandonment of the discontinuance to wish to participate actively and fully with the process of the file with the protest. For the protest shall include all evidence or argument in support of the protestant's position. Protestant's case and the chief of the protestant must contain the following information: protestant's name and address and business. A statement of the description of the protest of the interest proceeding include the description of protestant's use of the line with the protestant does not use the line with the information concerned with the group of the public interest represented. If the protestant interest is limited with the retention of the surface of the portion of the line, the description of the portion of the line, subject of the protestant interest, the bond opposed designation of available evidence, show the applicant with the operative with the portion of the law profitable will include the appropriate return of the investment of those operations. The specific reason of the protestant application include the information regarding the protestant reliance for the informed false over the information that might be submitted to the affidavit of the person with the personal knowledge of the fact. Then rebuttal of the material subject of the application for the request of the public use of the consideration Title 49 U.S. Code 1095 of the 1152-28 of the board with the rules and request of the retrial of the conditions of the Title 16 U.S. Code 1247 and D with the 1152-29 of the board rules. Additional information required for the paragraph A1 section of the complete commenting parting of the party of the protestant may be provided with the statement of the position with the summary of the evidence regarding intent with the other financial assistance Title 49 U.S. Code 1094 with the environmental impact with the impact of the rural community developed with the recommended provision protecting the interest of the employee required for the public use of the conditions Title 49 U.S. Code 1095 with the perspective of the use of the right of way with the interim rail of the rail banking under Title 16 U.S. Code 1247D and Title 49 CFR 1152-29. Federal line application of all of the parties with the subject of the application for the addition with the information requiring paragraph A1 through 2 with the section commenting with the protestant must provide with the information that the protestant filed with the 5 feeder of the line application over the Title 49 U.S. Code 1097 or formal Title 49 U.S. Code 1091-0. Feeder application involved with the portion of the rail line involved with the abandonment with the discontinued with the application of the feeder line application for the file prior to the date of the abandonment with the discontinued application with the filed feeder line application pending for the before the board employee with the employee representing with the participation employee with the representative with the amendment file with the protest with the comments for the application that however to cover the board will impose with the employee with the protective condition of the Title 49 U.S. Code 1093 B2 with the become the application is granted with the employee with the representative that may not file with the comments of the protest seek of this protection file interpreted with the written with the commandments of the protest, along with the evidence of the argument and the reply of the written comment of the protest, as well as the public and the trail. The request of shall be filed with the board with the chief section of the administrator office of the proceeding. So for the Transportation Board, Washington, D.C. 204230001, with 45 days of the filing board of the abandonment of the discontinues the application for the original 10 copies of each of the written comment of the protest shall be filed with the board. A copy of the written comment of the protest served for the applicant of the representative at the time of the filing of the board. The applicant with the care of the bankruptcy, if the comment of the protest shall be filed with the bankruptcy court. Each of the filings shall contain the certificate of service, reply with the rebuttal of the written comments of the protest of the file with the service of the applicant and no later than 60 days of the filing of the application for the original 10 copies shall for the reply with the be filed with the board with the time limit of the proceeding, pleading of the request of the other paper of the documents, including any of the comment of the protest and the appeal of the board decision. Required with the permanent of the file under the part of the receipt of the filing of the board office of the Washington, D.C. For within the time limit for the anything of the such for the filing of the date of the receipt of the board with the date of the deposit of the mail determined to provide the however the service of the document is mail certified with the register and express the mail with the postmark within 3 days prior to the due of the date with the will be accepted the timely file with the if the computing of the time of the prescribed allowed by the part the date of the act even then with the default after the designated period of the time begin with the runs of the include with the filing under this part with the due of the due on the Saturday and Sunday of the legal highway of the district Columbia may best be filed with the board on the next day of the year of the Saturday or Sunday nor holiday except to indicate with the big paragraph D4 of the section half of the holidays should not be considered a holiday. Offers financial assistance of the maid for the pursuant 1152/27 C, but it must be filed for the time before the statutory regulatory date with the computed paragraph D2 of the section regarding the web of the day of the statutory day with the Sunday of the legal holiday is district of the Columbia. The board will reject any of the pleading after the due date unless the good of the cause is shown with the pleading of the file late. Oral hearings. An oral hearing request 10 days after the filing with the applicant for the board through the director of office for the proceedings will issue the decision any of the oral hearings request 15 days of the filing with the applicant for the board to decide for the whole of the oral hearing. Oral hearing should have the primary purpose of the cross-examination witness to verify the statement of the proceeding and directive of the testimony of the other applicant rebuttal of the evidence shall receive the discontinuation of the hearing officer with additional with the contained with the applicant with the submission of the writing evidence prior to the commencement of the hearing shall be established by the board. Post-hearing and legal brief shall be due with the 10 days after the close of the oral hearing and earlier date with the established with the hearing of the officer. Appealated procedures. The scope of the rule with except for the specifically and indicated with the law with the appealated procedure for the to be filed with the ban with the discontinue the procedure with the lieu of the general purpose of the Title 49 CFR 1115 with the appeal with the initial decision with the director of the office of proceeding determination. Determining whether the officer's financial assistance satisfied with the standard of the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1094 with the for the purpose of instituting negotiating exemption for proceeding with the purpose of the partial revocation of the instituting negotiation, whether the partially revoked with the reopening with the ban with the exemption with the authorized with the respectively under Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1052 with the Title 49 CFR 1152 subpart F for the purpose of the imposing the public use of the condition with the criteria of the Title 49 CFR 1152-20 with the condition limiting with the salvage with the real property with the environmental with the historical preservation purpose, and 3 the applicability with the administrator with the Trails Act with the Title 16 U.S. Standard Code 1247 and D with the ban with the proceeding with the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1093 a ban with the exemption proceed with the issue with the pursuing the delegation authority for Title 49 CFR 1011-7A2 4 through and 5 will be acted upon the entire board on several of Title 49 1011-2A7 and originally 10 copies of the appeal with the reply with the appeals on the section must be filed with the board. Appeals of the criteria with the appeal with due with the board decision a ban with the discontinuance proceed that will not be entertained. Those decisions are administratively final up with the date of they are served with the party. Seek for the administrative the action may be filed with the petition upon with the proceeding with the further under paragraph of the E4 with the section of the name with the discontinuance of the grant with the party wish of the board to have the opportunity to consider the position reopening with the further before abundant discontinuance alteration becomes effective. They must file with the petition within 15 days of the administrative filing with the decision served together with a request of the state with the effectiveness of the under paragraph of the E7 of the section if such for the petition reopening stay request for the receiver within 15 days any of the reply with the petition with the reopen with the must be filed with no later than 25 days after the date of the decision and served with any of the reply with the shave of the request must reach the board no later than 5 days after the shave of the request is filed with the board will grant a petition reopen with the showing that the action that will be effective materially with because of the new evidence and change circumstances of the material error. Form a petition reopen to be replied with the 90-30 page in length with include the index subject with the matter agreement argument with appendix and other attachments. Petition of the reopen the administrative the final action of the made with the file with the petition reopen the administrative the final action of the position with the reopen shall state with the detail of the respective of the which proceeding involved with the material of the error with the new evidence if the substantial change of the circumstance original 10 copies of the such position must be filed with the board. Just a review made with the secret of the judicial review with the board with the action of the ban with the discontinuance and proceed with the day of the action of the board becomes final with the day of the position Seek for the reopening of the file under the section before and after the petition. Seek for the judicial review file with the court. With the board will act upon with the petition with advising the court with the pendency of the unless action with might interfere with the court's jurisdiction. 6. Petition vindicate. The event with the procedural defect with such a loss of the properly filed with the protest with the failure with the applicant with the report with the public of the request requisite with the notes of the pros and abandonment with the etc. The board will entertain with the position with the vacate with the abandonment with the discontinuance authorization. Original 10 copies of the petition vacate with the must be filed with the board with the position to stay with the filing of the petition with the reopen and the stay with the not stay with the effective of the prior action. The original and 10 copies of the petition must be filed with the board. A petition reopening administrative filing with the action with the accompanying with the petition to stay with the effectiveness of the abandonment of the discontinuity as provided with the paragraph. E2 with the section of the petition reopened with the must be accompanied with the stay with the request of the parties which of the board to have the opportunity to consider the petition reopened before the abandonment of the discontinuity. The authorization becomes final. A party may petition for the stay of the effectiveness of the abandonment of the discontinuity authorization pending the request for the judicial review of the reason for the desired review relief. There shall be stay with the petition if the petition shall file with no later than 15 days prior to the effective date of the abandonment of the authorization or reply when either file with the if the parties effectively file with a reply with the reply must be reached to the board no later than 5 days after the petition is filed. Our 115240 board determination on Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1093 with the following schedule for the government process of the board consideration decision obeying with the discontinuity application proceed with the time application filed with the end of the time of the board decision merits. Day 1 application filed including the application case in chief. Day 10 the due date of the oral hearing request. Day 15 due date of the board decision oral hearing request. Due date 20 due date of the notice of the application published in the Federal Register. Day 45 due date of the protest comments including the opposition case of the chief and the public use of the trail use request. Day 60, due date of the applicant with the opposition came for the application respond with the trail use request. 11, the due date at 110 with the due date of the serve of the decision of the merits. Due date 120 of the offer of the financial assistance except for the application to be granted with the decision issued with the day 110 with the offer of the financial assistance shall be due for the 10 days after the service of the decision granting the application. Alright, if the applicant with the abandonment of the discontinued file with the banking with the repetitive of the bureau of the board shall be based on the decision report with the bankruptcy for the court of the application, any of the response of the application that are filed within such instance of the board shall establish the reasonable period for the time of the file when the response of the application so with the public input that can be included with the board decision reports over the board will be able to be the deadline with input for the request of the bankruptcy court because board action with abandonment of the application of the bankrupt railroads is advisory with only with no environmental filings and with the analysis is necessary with the Title 49 CFR 11055C. 11.5.27, the financial assistance proceed for the provision of information for the applicant must provide the promptly with involved with the request of the participating party considering with the authoring with the financial assistance to continue with the existing of the rail strip that has proven itself with the preliminary financial responsible for the under paragraph C1-2 with the section with the currently with the board filing with its applicant for the position exemption proceeding estimate of the annual subsidy of the minimum of the purchase of the price of the required to keep the line with a portion of the line of the operation and clap the exemption proceeding with the estimate of the annual subsided minimum purchase price of the depending on the type of the financial assistance indicate the potential for the offer the formal expression of the intent of the submit with the paragraph E2-1 with the section if the most of the recent reports of the physical issue with involved with the line with the traffic the revenue with the other data necessary to determine the amount of the annual financial assistance that will be required to continue with the rail transportation over the part of the railroad line with the exemption proceed with the data with the provide with the must be the minimum with the include with the area estimate of net liquidation value with the line with the support with the data reflecting the variable of the real estate with the appraisal of the assessment with the quality with the quantity with the track with the material line with the removal of the cost of the estimate include with the cost of the transportation room material with the point of the sale with the point with the storage of real use of the relay use if any offer is subsidized with the contemplate with the estimate with the cost of the rehabilitation line with the Federal Railroad Administration Class 1 safety with the same with the Title 49 CFR 213 Federal Register note of the abandonment of the discontinuity application for the Federal Register publication for the give of the notice of the filing of the application the 20 days of the application filed with the serve of the notice of the person intent with the other financial assistance with the serve of the continuous rail service with the under with the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1094 the regulations related with the abandonment of the discontinuity application offer the financial assistance will do 120 days of the application then filed with the 10 days after the decision granting with the application of the server whenever it occurs sooner. Exemption perceived if the position individual exemption for the prior with approval the requirement of the Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 1093 if the file with the board with the ban with the discontinuity of the line with the board will publish for the notice of the position Federal Register for the 20 days of the filing with the position Federal Register for the publish for the server the notice of the person with the potential entry with the providing financial assistance to serve the continued rail servant in line with the Title 49 U.S. Area Code 1094 with the regulation related with the extent of the ban with the discontinuance of the financial system with the due date 120 days after the filing of the petition for exemption or 10 days after the service of the board decision granting with the exemption with it ever occurs sooner. If the notice of exemption is filed with the owner of the class exemption with the board with the publishing of the exemption of the Federal Register within 20 days of the filing with the register publication serve with the notice of the person with the potential interest of providing financial assistance to ensure the continuation of the rail service line with the Title 49 U.S. Code 1094 with these regulations related with the exempt of the ban with the discontinuance of the offer of financial assistance to do no later than 30 days after the date of the Federal Register publication, give the notice of the exemption. Alright, submission of your final financial assistance with the offer of the ban with the discontinuance of the applicant for the position with exemption with the correction of intent with the file with the offer of the person potential interest for the provider with the financial assistance with no later than 40 days to 5 days after the Federal Register publication described in the paragraph B1 of the section no later than 10 days after the Federal Register publication described in paragraph B2.1 section determined with the care of the board of the formal expression of the intent with the file with the financial assistance into the type of the financial assistance and to the where they wish to provide the subsidiary of the buyer purchase of the demonstrator if they are preliminary financially responsible to describe in paragraph C1.2 of the section of the submission are subject to the following requirements of the 1152.25 D1 through 3. Preliminary financial responsibility. Person submitting with the expression of the intent of the file with the financial assistance described in paragraph C1.1 and paragraph C2.1 with the section with the demonstrator of the financial responsibility under the definition of the forth in C1.4 B. The section calculated preliminary financial responsibility of the rail line. The secret subside of the purchase of the secret subside of the preliminary financial responsibility amount should be with the $4,000 representative of the annual preliminary mile maintenance cost. Times of the number of the mile of the track if they seek the purchase of the preliminary financial responsibility of the amount that shall be summed of the railroad steel scrap the price of the per ton with the detail within 30 days of the submission with expression with the intent times 132 short turns per track mile with the or 117.857 long tons per track mile times the length of the line and mile plus $4,000 times for the number of the miles of the track times 2. Person submitting with the expression of the intent of the provider of the evidentiary support with the calculation of the board not necessary to do not issue the decision regarding the preliminary financial responsibility demonstrated within 10 days of the receipt of the expression of the intent of the party with the determining of the expression of intent will be presumed the preliminary financial responsibility upon request. Alright, the application must provide the information required by the paragraph A with the section of the presumption to the accuracy of the presumption with the probability financial responsibility aimed with the offer that's submitted with the under paragraph C1.4 of the section. Serve and finally, the officer must serve the assistant of the carrier with the owning with the operating with the line with the applicant all parties with the abandon with the discontinuity applicant for the exemption with the proceed with the officer must file concurrently with the chief of the section of the administrator to offer the proceeding serve for the Transportation Board, Washington D.C. 20420300001. An offer may be filed with the server at any time with the filing with the abandonment with the discontinuance the applicant for the position for the exemption of the decision served with the granting applicant for the position exemption. However, the board will notify the officer that have been previously notified and offer the notification of the previously filed with the officer must be filed with the server no later than 10 days after the server the board decision granting the applicant for the position exemption of the filing with the server the subject of the requirement of the Title 49 1152 25 D1 through 2 and D4 with the if then bona fide with the request of the applicant when the petition has failed to provide with the potential officer with the promptly with the information required with the under paragraph A with the section A with the information not contained with the applicant with the position the board will entertain with the position within 10 days prior with the submitting with the financial assistance on paragraph C1 of the section. Petition must be filed with the board with the 5 days after the serve of the decision granting the applicant for the position with the exemption of the position should include with the copies of the prior written request for the information accurate with the outline with the specific information that would orally request for the reply of the position must be filed within 10 days after the serve of the decision granting the applicant for the position for explanation of the position reply with the must be filed with the before and actual due with the date with the Title 49 CFR 1152 25 D4 with the position will issue the decision on the parties on the petitions within 15 days of the serve of the decision granting applicant for the position with exemption. 4. The contents of the offer shall set forth the offer for the detail of the offer that must be and identify with the line with the portion of the line with the question of the demonstration of the offer with the financial responsibility if it has with the responsible time will have the financial resource of the proposed contractual obligation. Example of the documentation board except for the evidence of the financial responsibility include the income of the statement of the balance sheet, letters of credit of the profit, the loss of the statement of the account with the statement of the financing commitments of the evidence of the adequate insurance for the ability of the obtain the adequate insurance for the example the documentation of the board will not accept the evidence of the financial responsibility, including the ability to borrow money on the credit card for the evidence of the non-liquidated assets offered the intent of the collateral with the governor and even the will be presumed financial responsible. To explain what the disparity between the officer of the purchase of the price of the subside of the left and care of the estimated on paragraph the A1 of the section explain how often the subside of the purchase is calculated, demonstrate for the offer that has played for the next growth with the reputable financial institution from the equaling 10% of the preliminary financial responsibility amount with the calculated pursuant to the paragraph C1 and 2 of the section of the governmental entity that are accepted with the requirement demonstrated that there is no continued with the need of the rail service of the line portion of the line of the question of the example the evidence of the roads that include the evidence of the commercial with the need of the service of the reflect with the support of the shipper of the receiver down the line with the evidence of the immediately significant with the commercial with the evidence of the combining support with the continued rail service with the evidence of the acquisition freight operating with it would not interfere with the current of the plan transit service with the evidence of the continued service that is operationally feasible. Alright, F. The identity of the officer with the provided the mailing address of each of the either business for the personnel with the other contact information, include the phone number, the email address available to the officer with the representative of the officer with the legal entity, include the entity's full name and the state of the organization or the corporation with the description of the ownership of the entity. The multiple parties seeking to make it a single offer the financial assistance clearly identify the entity with the individual will assume the common care for the obligation. The officer successfully clearly describe how the parties will allocate with the responsibility financing, subsiding, purchasing of the line with the purchasing operation of the line. Class exemption proceedings. The exemption expression with the intent of the file without the person potential injury of the provider of the financial assistance must no later than 10 days after the Federal Register publication described the paragraph V2 of the 2 of the section submitted with the carrier of the board formal expression the intent of the file with the other financial assistance indicate the type of the financial assistance they provide with the subsided with the purchase with the demonstration that they are preliminary financial responsibility described in the paragraph E1 2 of this section with the submission with the subject with the following requirements 1152.25 D1 through 3 with the submission with the formal expression with the intent of the subsection automatically state the effective day of the notice exemption of the under the class exemption of the 40 days normally will be the 10 days beyond the day of the state of the Federal Register publication. Service of filing an officer must serve with the assistance of the carrier with the institute with the exempt of the filing as of the other party with the proceeding with the others must can run currently with the chief of the section with the administrative office with the proceeding. Service of transportation Washington DC 20423-001. Any officer filed with the served in any time of the filing of the notice of the exemption. One notice of the exemption is published in Federal Register. However, the board must be notified officer previously with being submitted offer the notification previously filed with the officer must be filed with no later than 30 days after the Federal Register publication describing the paragraph B22 of the section with the filing service of the subject with the requirement of Title 49 CFR 1150 25 D1 D2 D4 if the after been of the bound five of the request of the applicant has failed to provide with the potential offer with the promptly with the information required with the paragraph A with the section with the information that is not contained with the notice of the exemption of the board concerning the petition with the 30 day of the period with the submitting with the financial assistance with the paragraph C2 with the petition must be filed with the board within 25 days of the publication. Federal Register described that in the paragraph of the B22 of the section with the petition shall include a copy of the prior of the written request of the information counter accurate outline with the specific information for the orally requested reply with the petition must be filed within 30 days after the publication of the petition. Reply with the must be filed with the honor before the actual date of the due date of the 49-11-52-25 D4 of the board will issue the decision petition for the total of the officer of the period within 35 days of the publication. Upon receipt of the formal expression of the intent of the officer of the under of the paragraph C2 of the section of the rail carrier, the applicant may provide for the board with the potential officer for the additional time of the need of the develop of the information required for the paragraph A of the section application expressly indicate the amount with the time of the considered necessary and not to exceed the 60 days to develop the estimate required information potential officer with the duration of the time of the period indicated by the applicant with the 30-day period with the submitting officer with the financial assistance of the paragraph C2 of the section shall be told without formal board action. 3. Content of the offer. The offer to the chef set forth in order detailed must meet the requirements of the paragraph C14 with the section accept the documents upon the receipt of the care of the written comment of the under 1152.25 of the satisfaction of the preliminary financial responsibility with the requirement of the paragraph C12 with the section with the upon the receipt of the carrier offer of the financial assistance must make it available to the party of the offer with the record of the bank account with the appraisable working paper the either documents of the preparing the exhibit 11150-2036 or if the exempt of the proceeding these documents that would have been used for the preparing exhibit 1 abandoned with the discontinuity application filed with the other record with the the data in possession of the carrier, seek with the exemption with the provider with the comparable data with the documents should be made available during the regular business hours at the time of the placing of the mutually agreeable in the parties. Alright, review of the officer's ban with the discontinue of the applicant for the board will review with each for the submit with the determine the financial responsibility of the person officer of the assistant with the criteria of the submit of the board will issue the decision postponing with the effect of the day of the authorization ban with the discontinue the decision will be issued the 15th day of the service with the decision granting application within 5 days of the offer will issue file within the time of the filing of the toll with the under paragraph of C13C. Of the exemption of the section within 5 days of the expiration, 120 days of the 4-month period with the description of Title 49 U.S. Code 1094 with the curves of the 4. First, under the delegation authority 1011-7A, with the direction of the officer for the proceeding will make with the initial designation with the offer of the financial assistance safety of the chamber of the Title 49 U.S. Code 1094 for the purpose of institution notification and appeal for the initial decision determination officer of the financial assistance satisfying with the standards of the Title 49 U.S. Code 1094. D, for the purpose of instituting negotiations acted upon with the entire board pursuant to the Title Title 49 CFR 10.11.2A7. Exemption proceed. The board will review each of the other submitted with a determined financial responsibility person who has offered an assistance. If that criteria is met over the board with a postpone with the effective date of the eve of the decision granting with the petition individual exemption with the notice of the exemption with the class exemption with the partially revoke the exemption in the case of the class of the exempt with the no notice of the exemption with the extent with the comply with the Title 49 U.S. Code 1094. The decision, the postponed particular revocable will be issued with the 15th day of the serve of the decision granting of the petition exemption with 35 days of the Federal Register publication. Described in the paragraph B2 of the 2 of this section with the 15 and 5 days after the offer is filed at the time of the filing has been told under paragraph C1, C3C, and C2, C2, 2C-D of this section. Under the delegation of authority, action of the 10.11.7A with the director of the office of the regime will make the initial determination of the offer of financial assistance satisfied with the chain with the Title 49 U.S. Code 1094-D for the purpose of partial revocation institution of the negotiation appeal with the initial determination whether the offer of the financial assistance satisfied with the standards of the Title 49 U.S. Code 1094-D for the purpose of the partial revocation institution negotiation will be acted upon by the entire board pursuant to Title 49 10.11.2A7. All right, F, your agreement of financial assistance, if the carrier of the person offered the financial assistance, if the subsidiary agreement, the design of the provider that continued rail service, the board will postpone with the effective date of the abandonment of the discontinue with the decision granted with a petition with an individual exemption. The notice of exemption is issued. The board will postpone effective date of the decision. Notice with the exemption. The postpone will be as long for subsided with the agreement is in effect. Alright, if the carrier of the person offered the purchase of the enter line with the purchase agreement, the board resolve the continued rail service, the board will approve of the transaction, dismiss the action with the application for the abandonment, the discontinue for the position with the exemption with the notice of the exemption board. Approval does not recover the Title 49 U.S. Code 1091, 1092, 10.11.32.3 with the part of the consuming date with the transaction for purchase for the institute, serve for the operator of the railroad subject to the Title 49 U.S. Code 1051. A. Failure to reach an agreement with the financial assistance of the carrier with the financial responsibility personal fail to agree with the amount of the terms of the subside of the purchase. Either the party may request the party to establish with the condition the amount of the compensation. The request must be filed within board within 30 days of the offer of the made with the served and concurrently with the overnight mail with all of the party with the proceed with the request must be complemented by the appropriate fee with the codified with the Title 49 CFR 1002 2F 26 with the replies will due date later. If no agreement of the reached within the 30 days of the offer of the purchase subside with no request of the made with the board, except for the conditions amount of the compensation of the paragraph G1 of the section, the board will serve with the decision for the vacating of the prior decision with the postpone with the effective date of the decision granting with the applicant for the decision granting with the exemption, notice of the exemption, in which of the applicable to partially revoke with each of the decision granting of the exemption, in the case for the class exemption, notice of the exemption, the board will issue the decision vacate with the 10 days after the due date of the requesting board to settle the condition amount of the compensation, the board will make with the decision and vacate the effective date of the service. Alright, H. Requesting established condition with the compensation of the financial decision. The board will request the established condition with the compensation of the financial decision. The paragraph G1 of this section, the board will issue the decision 30 days after the request is due. If the application received the multiple offer of the financial assistance, the request to establish the condition compensated with the will not be permitted before application select for the offer of the one which of the transact business. See paragraph 1 for L1 for the section. Alright, party requested the board to establish condition compensated with the financial assistance must be within the time period set forth in the paragraph. H4 with the section provided with the in case of the chief of the include with the breach of the will they estimate with the correct with the other negotiating party is estimated with the incorrect with the points of the agreement with the points of the disagreement with the between the negotiation party evidence substantially through these allegations offer have the burden of the proof to all issues if the dispute. Alright, 4. The offer must submit the evidence for the information support for the term of the seek for the 30 days after the offer of the current carrier reply for the evidence for the support for the term of the seek for the with the due date of the 35 days. 35 days after the offer is made with no rebuttal evidence of the permit of the evidence and information submitted after the due dates are rejected. Alright, where were we? If the requested board with determine the amount of the terms subside with the available the cost of the provide of the continued rail transportation reasonable to return with the value of the line with the under Title 49 U.S. Code 1094, F4 B with the subsidy of the agreement approved with the 1094 shall remain effective for more than 1 year with the unless mutually agreed upon with the parties if the request of the board with determine with the price of the other term, but the share of the board will not set for the price below the fair market value of the line within including unless otherwise agreed upon with the party with the facility of the line of the portion necessary to provide the effect of the transportation for the fair of the market value equal to the constitutional minimum value of the greater than the new liquidation value of the line. The going concern with the line with the constitutional minimum value with the computed with regard to the large protection cost. 7. Due with the 10 days, the serve of the day of the board decision, the offer must accept with the reject with the board with the term of the condition with the written with the notification of the board. All of the party with the receive of the offer with the accept with the term of the condition set forth by the board with the board decision and the binding of the both parties for the offer with the withdrawal of the other, and it does not accept with the term of the condition by the board with the timely written notification from the board will serve with the 20 days of the serve of the day of the board decision. Server setting of the term of the condition with the decision vacating with the prior to decision with the postponement with the effective day with the eve of the decision granted with the applicant with the exemption with the notice of the exemption, which of the applicant will partially revoke the exemption, and in the case of the class exemption, no notice of the exemption left the officer with the beginning concerned with the under the paragraphs 1 of the section of the decision with the vacate the effective day of the serve of the substantial of the purchase of the disposition after the day of the prior subconsumption of the purchase of the under section with the officer of the money substitute with the corporate affiliate with the purchase under the agreement provided with the board determined either the original officer with the guarantee with the financial responsibility its affiliated demonstrate with the financial responsibility of the owner's right. Except for the provided in paragraph 1 and 3 of the L3 of the section purchase under the section may not the transfers line with a discontinuity over the line prior to the ending with the second year of the consumption of the original sale with under the provisions, or 2 with the transfer line except for the carry with whom the line with the purchase prior to the end of the 5th year of the after consumption. Paragraph 3, paragraph L3, paragraph I2 with the section with it does not preclude with the purchase of the section of the transfer of the corporate affiliate with the following of the consumption of the original sale with the prior with the board approval of the affiliate with the acquisition operation. However, the required in Title 49 U.S. Code 1091, 1092, 3, and 1132, 3 with the corporate affiliate of the requiring line under the section prohibited the discontinued service over the line. Transferring the line of party with no corporate affiliated during the time period with the time paragraph I2 with the section J. The discontinued subsidiary may discontinue subsiding in the section with the giving them the 60 day with the notice of the discontinued application of all other parties proceeding unless another financial responsibility parties either subsidizes. Let's just keep going. Alright, agreement of beneficial with the care with the discontinued with the subside of the agreement of the situation with the 1 year with the dilemma with the Title 49 U.S. Code 1094 with the F4 with the not yet run. The carrier may file with the request of the board with the certificate with the request of the party with the demand with the exemption with the proceed with the obtain with the decision vacating with the decision postponed with the effective day of the year with the decision granted with the application over the petition with the individual exemption. None of the exempt with the board with the issue with the decision vacating with the 10 days after the filing certificate with the request of the decision vacate with the will effect with the serve with the day with the decay with the default with the agreement with the party defaults with the obligation of the financial assistance of the agreement, any of the other party of the agreement that may be promptly inform the board over the default with the upon the notification of the board will take an appropriate action. L. The multiple offers of the financial assistance. If the application received more than one offer, the purchase subside with the line with the officer of the founder financially responsible for the application, they must select with the officer of those of whom they wish for the transaction business domain with the discontinue with the application for the position exemption proceeding. 25 days for the serve of the decision granting with the application for the position with the exemption with the class of the exemption proceeding with the 45 days for the Federal Register published described in paragraph B2 through. With the section of railroads must file written notification over the selection of the board with the serve of the copy with the notification over the parties. Receive the ban with the discontinuance applicant for the position exemption with the application have received multiple other financial assistance with the person found with the financial responsibility has selected the offer with whom the wish of the transact business the new negotiating part of the complete with the subside of the agreement the request of the board to establish the condition amount of the compensation within 40 days of the serve of the day of the decision granting with the applicant for the position of the exemption and request to the board to set the terms and conditions must be served concurrently with all the parties with receiving if the agreement is subside with the sale of the reach within 40-day period with the board has not been recovered to establish the condition amount of the compensation any of the other financial responsibility offered may request the board to establish conditions amount of the compensation the request must be filed with the board with the 50-day of the serve of the day of the decision granting with the applicant for the position with the exemption of the serve of the concurrently with on all parties with the proceeding and other requests of the file with the board will issue the decision authorizing abatement over the discontinuance of the 60-day for the serve of the day of the decision granting with the application for the position of the exemption. This decision will be in effect with the day of the service. Class exemption proceedings. If the carrier seek with the exemption have the receipt of the multiple offer the financial assistance from the person filed with the financial responsibility select with the offer of the wish with the transact of the business negotiating parties should complete with the sale with the subside with the agreement the request of the board to establish the condition amount with the compensation within 60 days for the Federal Register publication with the prescribed in the paragraph B22 of the section the request of the board with the term of the condition must be served with the concurrently with all the parties of the proceeding if the agreement on subsidiary sale will reach within 60 days of the board has not recovered the establishment of the condition without with the compensation any other financial responsibility offered may recover the board with the establishment of the condition with the amount of the compensation for the request must be filed with the board within 70 days of the Federal Register publication described in paragraph B22 with the section served concurrently with all the parties of the proceeding. If no other request to file with the board will be in the issue of the decision vacating of the decision postponing the effective date of the notice of the exemption with 80 days of the Federal Register publication described in paragraph B22 of this section. Or the decision vacated will be effective the day of the service if the board establishes with the condition the amount of the compensation original offered with the drawn with the paragraph B each seven of the section offered of the financial responsible made with except for the board decision 20 days after the service of the day of the board decision term with the condition of the decision accepted with another such offer the board will require the applicant to accept the terms they incorporated with the board decision. M. The additional time of the following, notwithstanding the deadline for the previously set for the set forth on 11:52, the following officer of the financial assistance party that cannot show that it would be materially with the judges if they having less than fully 4 months of the following officer of the financial assistance provided with the Title 49 1040C for the application proceeding may seek with the Title 49 CFR 1117. All right, M. Your special provision for the summary discontinue with the debate within the line with the non-part of the financial system plan. 1. Board authorization not needed for the cessation of the service, cessation of service in line with the railroad, formerly with the reorganization, include with the final statement of the plan with the regional with the rail or reorganization 1973, Title 45, U.S. Section 701 and 10 sequence. Is amendment of the Railroad Revitalization Regulatory Reform Act of 1976 with the line with the continuously subsidized since the inception of the plan with the provide the opportunity of the rail for the continuation officer with the financial assistance with the owner of the line must give the notice of less than 60 days notice for the discontinuance beginning with 120 days for the discontinuance not less than 30 days for the notice of the ban with the designated operative with the need to only comply with the notice of the requirements of 115011 of the title. This instance of the discontinuance with the designated with the operator line with the owner to obligate with the operate the line with the notice of the line owner of the board with the governing of the transportation agency of the government, each of the potential subdivision, each of the state which is of the rail property located to each of the shipper to the rail service during the previous 12 months of the board will generally apply with the OFA with the procedure for the section of the Title 49 CFR 1152 27 of the class exemption submitted summary abandonment of the discontinued notice of the except for the board will not with the postponement of the effective date of the summary of the discontinued for example the notice of the summary abandonment of the discontinued is published when the board federal register within 20 days of the following. Paragraph B2 with you of the section expression within 10 of the file with the offer of the file with not later than 10 days of the federal register publication. Paragraph C2 1 of the section after the offer must be filed within 30 days of the federal register publication. B2 2 and C2 3 of the section of the board review officer of the determinant of the financial responsibility of the person, officer of the assistant of the criteria of the board postponement, the effect of the duty of the summary of abandonment, but no discontinuance within 35 days of the Federal Register publication. E2 of the section, if the carrier of the financial responsible of the person failed with agreement of the amount with the term of the subsidiary purchase for the eve of the party with the request of the board, sample the condition amount of the compensation request must be filed within 30 days after the offer of the purchase for the subsidiary with the board will issue the decision within 30 days after the request is due. Paragraph G1 through H1 of the section. Whether the designated operator with the being used the may be reasonable management fee of the parties cannot be agreed with the fee with it shall be for the 1/2 of the percent of the total annual revenues attributed to the branch. Alright, 1152.28 of the public use proceeding if the board find with the person the future public conveyance if the necessary requirement impairment abandonment the discontinuance the board will determine the involve the rail property for the appropriate for the use of the other public purposes. And this is actually a pretty long section. Alright, we're going to cut the tape when we get to Subpart D. I guess we're almost there. Here, let's just cut the tape now.